First, she wasn't elected. Now Hillary's class gets rejected. True, even students on the left give Professor Clinton an F. Students in Hillary Clinton's new class says it sucks. Even more than an intern who... you know where this is going. So a new study links drinking alcohol to the risk of dementia. Alcohol and dementia. Sounds familiar.
Karine Jean-Pierre walked in calm, binder ready, confidence on full display. But the second Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly stepped into the room, the energy completely shifted. Greg kept the pressure coming with nonstop sharp humor, while Megyn challenged every response with relentless precision. Karine tried to hold steady, but the tense back and forth quickly turned into a chaotic and unforgettable showdown that had the entire room on edge.
The idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for.
What? Isn't she charming? No wonder Bill spends most of his days perched in a tree outside the local Hooters.
If press briefing showdowns were an Olympic event, Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly would be taking home gold medals every year. This time, their spotlight landed on Karine Jean-Pierre, whose strategy for handling tough questions seemed to be avoiding them altogether. Instead of giving direct answers, she kept tossing questions back to reporters, hoping the pressure would fade away. But with Greg's rapid-fire humor and Megyn's sharp follow-ups, every dodge became impossible to ignore, turning the briefing into a tense, chaotic, and unforgettable media clash.
He's back like a sore on a porn star's lip.
Ew.
Complaining on X about Trump cleaning up D.C., she says, quote, on one hand, Republican officials call themselves war fighters. On the other, they become whiny crybabies at the thought of setting foot in D.C. streets and New York City subways that literal school children navigate every day without incident. Real macho stuff. Then she got off social media and returned to moving a dead body to a park.
If you're enjoying this intense political debate and sharp commentary, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. What was supposed to be a routine White House press briefing quickly turned into a dramatic and highly talked about exchange, filled with tough questions, awkward moments, and non-stop reactions from the audience. Greg Gutfeld, widely known for his sharp political humor, delivered relentless commentary throughout the discussion, keeping the atmosphere tense and entertaining at the same time. The crowd reacted strongly to the unexpected back and forth, with many viewers finding the entire situation impossible to ignore.
This might be, in my opinion, the worst thing she's ever said. Because we know New York City subways. Kids don't take the subway.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if you do, you're like, whose kid is that?
Yeah, there are men on there who set fire to women. But she's pretending that the people that are trying to reduce crime, that are doing it for themselves, because she's only used to doing things for herself.
The funniest part about this post for me was the fact that she disabled comments on it. What? You wouldn't want to have to see anything unsavory.
Karine appeared visibly overwhelmed, struggling to keep pace as the intense questioning and rapid-fire exchanges continued throughout the briefing. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld leaned heavily into his trademark sarcasm and sharp humor, turning several awkward moments into highly entertaining commentary. The audience reacted strongly to the chaotic atmosphere, with every exchange adding even more energy to the room.
Masculinizes the argument. I don't even know if that's a word. Is it?
It is now.
It is. She takes a real issue, which is crime affecting the citizens of D.C., and makes it about these war fighters being whiny crybabies, like it's big, whiny...
Yeah, because they want the streets safe for not just them.
Yes.
The children, and not just that, the children who are jacking and robbing everyone.
While Greg Gutfeld brought nonstop sarcasm and high-energy commentary to the discussion, Megyn Kelly took a far more calm and calculated approach. Without raising her voice or creating unnecessary drama, she focused on detailed follow-up questions and carefully challenged several of Kareen's responses. Her composed delivery and sharp analysis added another layer of intensity to the exchange, making the entire briefing feel even more dramatic and closely scrutinized.
Classified info the way her husband treats women, casually disposable. In this age when there's no monopoly on mayhem, we need careful, not careless. 3, she put personal privacy before public security. The way Bill used the Secret Service, she used the Secret Server, both to create a wall between prying eyes. So, no surprise, in a new poll, when Americans are asked what word best describes her, they scream liar, followed by dishonest, then untrustworthy. I think I notice a trend. To Americans, she's less dependable than your cable guy. Meanwhile, as she implodes, Biden basks, a white knight with whitened teeth. But as nice as Joe is, it reveals the sober truth.
Megyn Kelly carefully analyzed Kareen's responses throughout the briefing, arguing that many of the answers sounded overly scripted and lacking in clarity. Her sharp observations and calm delivery added even more pressure to an already tense exchange. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld responded with his signature comedic style after Kareen discussed inflation in a way he considered overly casual. He leaned into a dramatic impression of the briefing's awkward pauses, repeated explanations, and long-winded responses, drawing loud reactions from the audience. One of his biggest jokes centered around how even the simplest questions seemed to turn into lengthy answers that never fully addressed the point, a moment that quickly became one of the most talked about parts of the exchange.
Arrested and ready Bigfoot. Hillary Clinton told folks in Pennsylvania that she's ready to come out of the woods. So is this the comeback that America wants? You know, we love it when great bands get back together, but not Limp Bizkit, not Hoobastank. Hillary announcing return, it's like the bird flu announcing a return of the bird flu. Or McDonald's relaunching the Arch Deluxe. Or MSNBC bringing back Brian Williams. Really? We're living in a reverse episode of In Search Of, where the vanishing creature keeps...
Megyn Kelly delivered her criticism in a calm, controlled, and highly polished way, carefully pointing out what she viewed as repetitive talking points and overly rehearsed responses during the briefing. She highlighted familiar phrases, often heard in press conferences, arguing that they had become predictable enough for audiences to instantly recognize them. Her composed style mixed sharp political commentary with dry humor, giving the segment a tone that was both analytical and entertaining. As the discussion continued, Greg Gutfeld pushed the satire even further with an exaggerated comedy bit that mocked the overall communication style of the briefing. One of the segment's most talked about moments featured a humorous skit involving a goldfish dressed as a mock press secretary replacement, which drew loud reactions and laughter from the audience. The combination of Greg's over-the-top comedy and Megyn's precise critiques turned the entire exchange into a viral-style political media moment packed with sarcasm, humor, and non-stop reactions.
Hillary plays won't go away. She's the Yeti who wouldn't leave. Well, unless, of course, she's running for office. Then she disappears. But she announced she's back in Lackawanna, Pennsylvania. True, she did beat Trump there, but he won the entire state. And she lost it because she was MIA. She thought she had it in the bag. So now she says, hey, you'll be seeing a whole lot more of me. That's the worst thing a loser can say. It's like Rachel Maddow holding up a wad of old government forms she found in a dumpster behind Trump Tower and saying, hey, you'll be seeing a whole lot more.
Greg Gutfeld then introduced a deliberately exaggerated comedy graphic that looked intentionally low budget, adding even more humor to the segment. The chart jokingly tracked how often Kareen gave what he considered a direct answer, with the line staying almost completely flat for comedic effect. Small bumps on the graph were humorously labeled as rare moments where something unexpectedly clear slipped through, turning the visual itself into the joke. The audience reacted immediately, with many laughing at the over-the-top presentation, while others seemed stunned by how sharply the satire captured the mood of the discussion. The combination of exaggerated visuals, sarcasm, and crowd reactions made the segment feel less like a traditional political debate and more like a late-night comedy showdown.
5 days left is the proverbial poop hitting the fan. You just heard Brett Baer on the latest news, but will it make a difference? What if the emails found on Weiner's laptop did come from Hillary's server? And what if there were new discoveries that actually had classified info? One of Baer's sources claims that Hill's server had been hacked, as he said before, with information stolen by at least 5 foreign intel agencies. If this is true, how will Hillary beat this rap? With this rap by her pal?
Megyn Kelly opened the discussion with a calm but pointed comparison, joking that Kareen's communication style felt like a GPS constantly recalculating, even when no clear direction had changed. She argued that many briefings seem to leave audiences more confused rather than informed, delivering the criticism with a composed and understated tone. Greg Gutfeld quickly added his trademark sarcasm, joking that question dodging had become an art form filled with long, tangled explanations that were difficult to follow. Megyn continued by suggesting that some of the responses sounded overly rehearsed and disconnected from the actual questions being asked. Greg later exaggerated Kareen's familiar on-camera expressions for comedic effect, recreating what he described as the tense, frozen reactions seen during difficult moments in the briefing. Meanwhile, Megyn stayed calm and observant throughout the exchange, reacting with dry humor as the chaotic atmosphere unfolded around them. Together, their mix of satire, political commentary, and sharp delivery turned the segment into another highly talked-about media moment.
She must be working for Trump. Seriously, that is so bad it could turn Chelsea Clinton into a never Hillary. And sorry, Lena, the gender card has been so played out, it's falling on deaf-pierced ears. Look, if you already hate Hillary, this new stuff isn't going to change a thing. And if you already hate Trump, this isn't going to make you love him. Battle lines are drawn. Nothing sticks. But it seems like the truth is now the bull in Hillary's china shop. Remember, Nixon was pretty cocky, too, up until he wasn't. Events are now dictating.
Greg Gutfeld leaned fully into satire, jokingly imagining Kareen running a restaurant while delivering long, overly formal explanations instead of simple answers. In the comedy bit, even ordering appetizers turned into a complicated strategic briefing, with customers becoming increasingly confused by the endless explanations. The exaggerated scenario played into Greg's ongoing joke about overly complicated communication styles, drawing loud reactions from the audience. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly added her own calm and cutting humor, imagining Kareen trying to give directions to a lost tourist, but turning the conversation into a philosophical debate instead of offering a clear answer. The joke centered around how simple questions often seem to become unnecessarily complex discussions, leaving people even more confused than before. What made the exchange stand out was that neither Greg nor Megyn relied on shouting or dramatic outbursts. Their calm delivery, sharp timing, and steady sarcasm gave the entire segment an even stronger impact. Greg's comedy style remained loud, chaotic, and intentionally over the top, while Megyn balanced it with a more controlled and polished form of criticism, creating a mix of humor and commentary that kept the audience completely engaged.
Will her new foreign policy class change minds that she's a horse's ass? This week, Columbia University shared a video promoting a new course that's co-taught by Hillary Clinton. Believe me, no one's more thrilled to have Hillary out of the house than Bill. Speaking of Bill, if you're a lady who is a solid 8 or above, he'll tutor you for free. The course he's teaching, how to fit snugly under my desk.
Megyn Kelly delivered her commentary with a calm, controlled intensity, relying on precise wording and measured tone rather than volume or theatrics. Her observations carried a sharp, analytical edge that made the critique feel more pointed, as she broke down the communication style being discussed with a steady, almost clinical focus. Greg Gutfeld, on the other hand, leaned fully into satire, suggesting the entire exchange almost felt like an experimental format where clarity took a backseat to confusion. He jokingly framed it as a kind of ongoing performance, where answers seemed intentionally layered and indirect, turning serious political moments into material for comedy. Megyn responded in a similarly restrained tone, adding that the overall style sometimes felt like a blend of formal briefing and surreal improvisation, where structure exists but rarely leads to direct conclusions. Together, their contrasting approaches, his chaotic humor and her composed analysis, turned the segment into a sharp mix of satire and commentary, keeping the tone critical but theatrically engaging throughout.
She's now the political equivalent of marginal royalty from a forgotten European country, smugly entitled, but no one cares. Her crimes: 1. She mistook the cause of terror, blaming Benghazi on a video, seeking a scapegoat instead of assuming responsibility. 2. But it's the smartest realization on campus since someone realized you could put vodka up your butt. Thanks, Shannon. Earlier this year, Bill's worser half accepted a professorship at Columbia teaching public affairs. Meanwhile, Bill did offer to tutor some of the female students, but Columbia has a no cigar.
Megyn Kelly reviewed the segment with her usual calm, analytical tone, focusing on what she described as the most notable moments from the exchange. Her delivery remained composed and precise, emphasizing the gap between expectation and performance in a way that felt sharp without being loud or emotional. Greg Gutfeld leaned fully into satire during his wrap-up, framing the entire briefing as a comedic montage of awkward pauses and exaggerated reactions. His humor highlighted the most uncomfortable moments for comedic effect, turning them into a fast-paced parody sequence that resonated strongly with the audience's reactions. Megyn added a final remark delivered with a controlled, pointed smile, reinforcing her critical stance in a subtle but impactful way. The overall tone of the segment blended commentary and satire, with Greg driving the humor and Megyn delivering measured critique, creating a sharp, entertainment-heavy breakdown of a politically charged moment.
For passing her wisdom onto the next generation on everything from fraudulent land deals to unflattering pantsuits. Meanwhile, students were promised empowering lessons by one of America's biggest losers. After all, who else can teach them how to delete emails and destroy evidence, while also learning how to destroy Libya? But turns out the class is just a bunch of ego-worshipping drivel in front of an audience, unlike her show on Apple TV, which was ego-worshipping drivel without an audience. One disappointed student described her first day as a swarm of several hundred people, a sea of cameras, Secret Service personnel. Sounds like every time Joe makes a boom-boom.
In the end, it didn't feel like a heated political clash at all. It played more like a polished comedy dinner, where the formal structure slowly dissolved into satire. Karine Jean-Pierre ended up at the center of it all, meant to guide the conversation, but instead becoming the focus of the jokes. Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly weren't operating with anger or aggression. They relied on timing, wit, and sharp observation. Greg leaned into humor and exaggeration, while Megyn delivered calm, precise commentary that cut quietly but clearly through the moment. By the end of the segment, the audience reaction was less about disagreement and more about shared disbelief at how the exchange unfolded. It became one of those moments where commentary, satire, and real-time reactions blurred together into pure entertainment. And through it all, the tone stayed surprisingly controlled. No shouting, no chaos, just humor and critique delivered with a steady hand.